Hello, music theory community. Welcome once again to another installment of my music theory and composition videos. This time we're going to have our first installment on the Baroque music convention, which is figured bass, and we're going to look at some of the issues that come up with figured bass so we can understand what is going on with the form. Okay, so here we have an example in the key of B minor. And let's start off. So if you see no Arabic number underneath a bass tone, then that means the chord is in root position. So no Arabic number, the chord is assumed to be in root position. So this one and this one are root position 1 chords. Again, the bottom note is B, so therefore that implies that this chord is a B minor triad. In this example, we're going to look at fleshing this progression out into 4-part chorale style. So here we have a soprano note, an alto note, a tenor, and a bass. Let's go on and decide what our next harmony is. Here you have the numbers 6-4. 6-4 implies that the chord is a triad in second inversion. So, if this bass note is a C sharp and this is a triad in second inversion, students, what must the bass note be? It must be this note, the F sharp. So this triad is spelled F sharp, A, C sharp. But what I want to turn your attention to is notice that there is a slash through the 6. Any slash through a number means that that note above the bass, once again, above the bass, not above the root, above the bass there's a 6th above the bass and it is raised 1/2 step. So students, what is a 6th above the C sharp? It's got to be an A. So that A is not an A natural, but rather it's an A sharp. So this chord will be spelled F sharp, A sharp, C sharp. So the root of the chord is an F sharp. Students, what note is F sharp in the key of B minor? Scale degree what? It would have to be 5. So this chord is a 5-6-4 chord. It's a 5 chord in second inversion. And we learned that this chord is commonly used as a passing chord between 1 and the next chord, which is what? Here you have a standalone 6. A standalone 6 means that you have a triad in first inversion. So students, if the bass note is a D, this means that the root of this chord is B. So this chord is a B minor chord in first inversion. The notes of the chord are B, D, F sharp. So this would get Roman numeral 1. Okay, the next chord, 6-5. The numbers 7, 6-5, 4-3, and 4-2 are all indicators of some sort of a 7th chord, root position, first inversion, second inversion, final inversion. So 6-5 is a 7th chord in first inversion. If you see a standalone 7, that means it's a 7th chord in root position, 4-3, second inversion, 4-2, final inversion. And this one, of course, the 7th is in the bass. So let's look at this one in 6-5 position. So if this is a 7th chord in first inversion, what must the bass note be, students? It's got to be this note, the C sharp. So this chord is spelled C sharp, E natural, G, B natural, with the B being the 7th, which would need resolution down. So this chord, being that the root is C sharp is scale degree what in the key of B minor? 2. This chord is a 2-6-5 chord. 2-6-5 chords, again, are good substitutes for 4 chords. They have the 7th They've got scale degree 2, 4, 6, and 7, and they have a little bit more flavor and punch than a typical 4 chord. The next chord, 6-4. This implies, once again, as this one, that we have a triad in second inversion. So if the bass note is an F sharp, what must the root of the chord be? B. So this chord is spelled B, D, F sharp. B, D, F sharp are the notes of what chord in the key of B minor? The 1 chord. So this chord is a 1-6-4 chord. And we learned that it is a cadential 6-4 chord. They precede dominant harmony, and they're almost always found on downbeats or on strong beats. And they lead into a 5 chord. Here, a standalone 7. It's got to be some sort of a 7th chord in root position. So root position, what scale degree is this? Here is an F sharp in the key of B minor, scale degree 5. This is a 5-7 chord, a dominant 7th chord. And the last chord, B. The notes of the dominant 7th chord are going to be F sharp, A, C sharp, E. I'm going to turn your attention to this standalone sharp. Any standalone accidental like that means that the third above the bass will have that accompanying accidental. So the third above an F sharp is an A. So this A will need an A sharp. And the A sharp, of course, is the leading tone in the key of B minor. Okay, now that we know what these harmonies are, let's start fleshing out the 4-part writing. What I would do first is look to compose a soprano part first. Try not to compose chord by chord, because then you lose the sense of line that we do need to create. So notice how this part rises. Thinking in species counterpoint, it might be nice to descend or have some interesting leaps. Okay, let's look at the 6-4 chord, the 5-6-4 chord. The notes of the 5-6-4 chord again are F sharp, A sharp, C sharp. Why A sharp? Again, the 6th above the bass, which would be the A, is raised 1/2 step, and it is the leading tone of the 5 chord. All 5 chords are always major, even in a minor key, okay, raising the leading tone. So let's look at what we have here. We have a C sharp in the bass. We're not going to want to double any more C sharps, since typically we try to double the root and the 3rd of a chord, not the 5th of the chord, the root or the 3rd. So we're not going to use the C sharp anymore. Now where can we head smoothly off this D natural, either to an F sharp or an A? An F sharp or an A off that D natural, students. So the option is this F sharp or this A sharp here. So it seems like going to the F sharp might be a good choice. Here's a skip, stem it up. That's the root of the chord. What about heading off this F sharp? Whenever you can, maintain a common tone, stem it down. So here are your 2 roots of your chord. No more F sharps. It would be nice to include the 3rd of the chord, and the 3rd of the chord is your A sharp, and there we can incorporate it there, stepwise motion down. So here you have contrary motion between soprano and tenor. The tenor is sitting on an A sharp. We know that leading tones require resolution up, and the tenor note can be the B in the 1-6. So here you have a root, B. Here you have the 3rd of the chord. Now let's see where we can head off with that soprano line. F sharp, our note choices are B, D, and F sharp. Why don't we maintain the common tone? Whenever we can, we should try to maintain common tones. So here's the 5th of your chord being used. The alto, sitting on an F sharp. What can we do? We don't want to double the 5th of the chord. So now here's where we're going to have to make a decision, either with the alto or with the soprano. The note choices again are B, D, F sharp. So going down to the D might be an option, but that'll pose this problem where we're having more than an octave between the upper three parts. So let's think, how can we get out of this problem? What about leaving the F sharp, going down to the D sharp, to the D, sorry, and then maintaining the common tone F sharp here. So now our interval is not exceeding the octave. So now here you have D, which is the third. Here you have another third. Here you have the fifth of the chord, and here you have the root of the chord. And we're doubling up on the third of the chord, which is an option. These tones here are parallel sixths, which are okay. We always need to check any parallel motion to see that we're not composing parallel perfect fifths or parallel perfect octaves. Let's head into our 2-6-5 chord. C sharp, E, G, B. The B is the seventh of the chord. Let's maintain the seventh in the tenor. Let's look at the soprano note. We're on a D. Our note choices are C sharp, E, G, or B. We don't need the B anymore. So we can fill in, perhaps. That might be a choice. We skipped up, went back down to the D. We can continue ascending, or we have the option of going down to the C sharp if we'd like as well. So there are many possibilities. Let's not use the E because there's already an E in the bass note here. So in a seventh chord, we try to represent all tones. Let's go down to the C sharp, which is the root of the chord. We have an E here, we have a B. So the alto, we need to have the E incorporated. So we're moving down by step. These two tones move down by step, but they are perfect. They are sixths. They are sixths, which is okay. The seventh of the chord, which is the B in the 2-6-5, needs to resolve down by step. Can it? What are the notes of a 1-6-4 chord in the key of B minor? They are B, D, F sharp. There is no A sharp for the B to resolve down to. So when you can't resolve a seventh, you need to maintain it as a common tone until you can finally resolve it down. And now when can the B finally resolve down? Since it's the seventh of the 2-6-5 chord, it can finally resolve down to the A sharp in the 5-7 chord. And here you incorporate your leading tone and you resolve the leading tone up. So whenever you need to resolve sevenths down, but if you cannot, you maintain it as a common tone and then make sure when you can to resolve it down in the harmony that allows for it. So our tenor line is complete. Now let's look at soprano and alto. So we have B composed, which is the root of the chord. We have D, we have F sharp. In a cadential 6-4 chord, the best tone to double is the fifth of the chord. It's one of the only triads where doubling the fifth is desired. So you want to focus and highlight the fifth scale degree since it is a chord that functions in a dominant area, or 5 is highlighted, and they resolve 2 5 chords. So doubling the F sharp is good. So we can use it here in the alto. So we have F sharp, we have a B, we need the D. D can be used right here in the soprano. Okay, 6-4 chords move down to 5 and 3 in the 5-7 chord. All 5-7 chords have a third above the bass, they have a fifth above the bass, and they have a seventh above the bass. So where is the sixth above the F sharp in this cadential 6-4 chord? It's the D, and the D must move down to 5 above the bass. F sharp to C sharp is the fifth. 6 moves to 5. Cadential 6-4 moving into 5-7. Now the fourth must move to the third. Where is the fourth above the bass? It's the B. And the B moves down to the A sharp, which is the 3 resolution, 4 moving to 3. Now, the alto. Have we used the seventh of the chord? What is the seventh of the 5-7 chord? in the key of B minor. It's the E. So now here is the seventh of the 5-7. Sevenths need to resolve up or down in the following chord. Down. So the seventh is resolved to the D. You have B, B. The root of the chord is doubled. We have the D. We need the F sharp. In this case, I think it might be okay to omit the fifth of the chord. You can omit fifths of chords and double or triple up on the root of the chord. And we're going to do that just here. We're doing that to have a smooth stepwise motion down here to complete the line and return to the tonic. It's conceivable to go back up to the F sharp if you'd like, but I have a plan of maintaining those 6 down to the tonic. But again, moving up to the F sharp would have been an option as well. Leading tone resolves up. The seventh must resolve down. The E is the seventh of the 5-7 chord. Okay, let's play a little bit of this now we have all this figured bass realized. Opening, first chord. The 6-4 chord. One 6. 2 6-5. Cadential 6-4. 5-7. 1. In block chord. Okay, and there you have realizing figured bass in chorale style in minor. Quick review: no Arabic number, root position triad, a standalone 6, a first inversion triad, a 6-4, a second inversion triad. If it's got a slash through a number, that note above the bass is raised 1/2 step. Any standalone 7 is a 7th chord in root position. Any 6-5 is a 7th chord in first inversion. 4-3, second inversion. 4-2, third inversion, 7th chord. The cadential 6-4 chord, the 6 and the 4 must move down to 5 and 3. Any standalone accidental means the third above the bass must be raised with that accidental, or lowered if it were a flat. In this case, it's a sharp. Okay, thank you very much for watching, students.